Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Tyler. After a weekend down in Los Angeles, I was at the game on Sunday, of course, and so was driving back to Fresno afterwards so I could get back to work on Monday. So I was not able to join Tyler and Alex on Sunday, but I'm sure it was a riveting podcast after that game. But joining me, as always, is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, it's man, long time no see in person over camera, I guess. How are you doing today?
Doing well. I'm curious your thoughts on the whole experience of being at SoFi, watching another Chiefs victory against the Chargers at home. I didn't realize it had been as long as it had been since the Chargers had won and beaten the Chiefs at home, and it was against Chase Daniel and the backups of the Chiefs. But it's kind of like that every time that I've been there. I've been a season ticket holder since 2013, so yeah, it's kind of like that every time. How was it for you?
It was definitely an experience. The start of the game was fantastic. Getting the 2 turnovers right away. The Mahomes interception was one of the more puzzling throws I've seen from him in quite a while, but I kind of always feel like he has just like one real big like head scratcher against the Chargers. Like, you remember a couple of years ago at Arrowhead when he threw the interception to Alohi Gilman, and it was like, what the hell are you doing? So I thought the defense was outstanding, and we might talk about them depending if we have time today. So it was great to see the defense, but it was really funny because in our section, the Chargers get out to 10-0, and it's, wow, they might actually do it this time. This is good. This might be the win against the Chiefs. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, let's wait and see how this goes. And people were texting me like, wow, what an awesome start. And then I'm just like, I don't know, man. We've been here before. So it was great to see in person, though. I had never seen the Chiefs play in person before. Chiefs fans were mostly very, very cool outside of the time where they decided to do the tomahawk chop chant while Deion Henley is writhing in pain on the ground. But it was a great experience overall. I wasn't expecting a win. I mean, people who are listening heard our thoughts heading into the game. We were not expecting, a great game by any means, but the Chargers theoretically had a chance to win that game at the end, and it was competitive, and there were some cool moments, and the production was fantastic, and everything was great. So it was a fun game. Unfortunately, the Chargers did not win, but had a great time with Brooke nonetheless.
Good to hear. It is always an entertaining game when they play the Chiefs, regardless. So you definitely got your money's worth in terms of entertainment. Just would be nice to see a win.
Yeah, there was this Chiefs fan who was like walking around after the game, and he was so mad. And I was like, why are you mad? Like, you guys just won. And he was like, I bet the spread, and the spread was 7.5.
Oh, man.
So he was pissed that the Chiefs did not cover. And I was like, you should know better. Like, these games are always close. It doesn't matter who is playing, whether it's, you mentioned Chase Daniel, whether it's Easton Stick, or whoever. These teams always play each other close. And he was like, well, Justin Herbert was injured. And I was like, well, he's playing. Like, he obviously felt good enough to play. So it's funny, the different spectrums. Like, Chiefs fans are at that point where they just expect to beat us by multiple touchdowns now. And I'm like, I understand, like, you have beaten us several times in a row, but the games are always close. And every Chiefs game is close. Like, it doesn't really matter who the Chiefs are playing at this point. Like, pretty much, like, probably 14 of their 17 games this year are going to be close.
Yeah, I think every game I've seen from them this year in particular is other teams looks good. Chiefs do something dumb. It's close. It's close. Chiefs win. Like 4 games in a row. It's nuts.
Yep. Every Chiefs game feels the same to me at this point in time. They start out slow. They figure it out. They do something stupid. The other team does something stupid. Chris Jones goes crazy. Patrick Mahomes does something crazy, and then the Chiefs win. And that's what this game was. So in all seriousness, it was a great time. I saw several people who are regulars listening to the show, so we appreciate you guys. We got to meet Lorenzo Neal after or before the game, so that was pretty cool for us. We were expecting LaDainian Tomlinson, so that's okay. We still got to meet Lorenzo Neal. We were told beforehand it was going to be LT, and then they switched last minute, and then it was Lorenzo. Lorenzo was great, super cool to meet, very nice. He actually lives up here in the Central Valley of California, so we spoke to him for a minute about Fresno stuff, and he was very, very nice. But it was kind of disappointing to walk up and see Lorenzo instead of LT. But regardless, shout out to Karen Garcia. She was the one who facilitated that for us, and we were super grateful for her, as we always are.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we well, not to flex, but we've been in the same media room as LaDainian Tomlinson, and he's been chilling there at training camp with us. So
yeah,
it's okay.
I just have never spoken to him, but one day.
And I never will. I am too much of a coward.
That's totally fair. All right. As the title of the show says today, we are going to be diving into the Chargers passing offense. A lot of questions about Justin Herbert, and is he regressing? Is he this? Is he physically okay? Is he mentally okay? Are the Chargers wasting another season of Justin Herbert? Yada, yada, yada. So we are going to dive into everything that is the Chargers passing offense, and some other things. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll speak about Jesse Minter and a much more positive conversation. Hopefully we can get to that. Today's show, of course, is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. They have great specials. Hopefully you guys were able to take advantage of the Caleb Williams special, where if you got more than half a passing yard, that was an automatic win in your lineup. Whatever your kind of gameplay is, whether you just want some easy goblins, goons, whatever they're called, I forget. That's a great way to get some extra skin in the game. Or if you're just like hardcore gamer and you really want to get 10, 15 players, Prize Picks is the best way to do that. So prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty for a deposit match up to $100 is the best way to dive in there. And it does help support the show as well. So you help us, they help you make some money. It's fantastic. Definitely encourage that. All right, Tyler, let's dive into this Justin Herbert conversation. I think before we get to him specifically and like how he's playing, I think we kind of have to have a conversation of how the supporting cast is around him. And then we can kind of set the context before we evaluate his specific play and the offense overall. So let's start with the offensive line. Big guys up front, tip of the spear, weapons, all that, according to Jim Harbaugh. They're an offensive line-centric organization.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough to watch the tape back of that game on Sunday. But for you, as we sit here during the bye week, have your expectations of the offensive line been met or not met? What are your kind of thoughts, feelings about that group up front right now?
It has not been met. Now, granted, this is a group that was not going to be fixed in 1 year, but I was hoping for. Okay, Joe Alt on the field has exceeded expectations, of course, throughout the entire year. I think he's exceeded expectations. Rashawn Slater, when not dealing with a pec strain, has honestly exceeded expectations. At minimum, he's met them. He looks great. It's really the interior here that has been my struggle point and my issue. And it's really what, Sunday became a Jamari Sawyer, Trey Pipkins tackle duo. But for the most part, the offensive line, it's been the interior that's given me the most cause for concern. And of course, doesn't help the offense, doesn't help Justin Herbert. Right now, this offensive line, we've seen some not great offensive lines for the Chargers. We've seen, what they looked like before Brandon Staley, where 2020, his rookie year, or Herbert's rookie year, wasn't great. They tried to shore up the offensive line. It got better. We saw it get worse again with Corey Linsley being out, Kellen Moore, etc. Regardless, this right now is the worst offensive line Justin Herbert has had in terms of pass blocking efficiency, which is honestly saying something given the offensive lines that we've seen in 2020 with your Dan Feeney's and a Senio Calamete game, I believe that might have been 2021.
That was 2021, yeah.
Great. Regardless, it has not been pretty, and yet we are sitting right now where the Chargers offensive line, their ranking isn't as bad as it's been before. They're 23rd, but their number is 82.9, which is the worst it's been. The worst is 84 point. The second worst is 84.1 in 2020. So it's not been great. And what I think it really is for me, it's almost like the whole interior is kind of having the Zion Johnson early on issue for the first couple of years, where honestly, if you look at the offensive line and the way it plays, for the most part on the interior, the pass blocking isn't terrible all the time. It's not like there's a game where I can look and go, there's the 8 pressures allowed game. There's the 10 pressures allowed game.
Yeah, there's no avalanche player on this unit.
Right. There's no specific like avalanche player on this group. You know, but there's in the worst moments or the best moments if you're a defense, this group can't get it together. So it looks like, we kind of forget and don't notice these things as the game happens. And then suddenly it's free rusher Justin Herbert gets killed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened? How did you not pick that up? And so it's just been so frustrating to watch this offensive line. I mean, they got backed up into their end zone. A lot of special teams issues so far this year, not helping them. They get backed up. Then I think there's a false start, which gets them to the half-yard line.
Yeah.
And Steve Spagnuolo goes, great, let's have some fun with this. And
the blitz was so sick, though.
It was, which is frustrating, right? Of course, the Chiefs' defense is good, and they've been playing together for a while. That system is locked in, dialed in. It's basically the best players that they can get to fit what they want to do. Chargers weren't ready for it at all. And what I think has been more of a struggle point for me with this offensive line, it's not that they played poorly against the Chiefs. They did, but it's not that they played poorly, because I didn't expect any of these guys to stop Chris Jones at all. It's that they couldn't execute. It's like they couldn't do the mental things in this game. It wasn't just, look, Chris Jones just bulldozed him, which did also happen. It's like the offensive line, a line and a group that I expected so much from this team cerebrally. It didn't feel like they were even together. And this team, this whole offensive line is third in the NFL in false starts right now with 8. Yeah. I guess technically the offense is third with 8. But we saw how many pre-snap penalties, definitely in week 1 against the Raiders, a ton against the Chiefs, and it's killing them. So I'm disappointed with this offensive line so far, and it's less just about play as much as it is mental mistakes.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here with the offensive line in general, but the biggest frustration for me, and I know like online discourse about offensive linemen is so annoying to me as somebody who played offensive line. It's just like, Bozeman is trash. Zion's ass. What a bust. Trey Pipkins sucks. It's like, well, that's like really simplified way to look at football, because if you're actually like watching what is happening, it's very clear to me that there are some major communication issues happening up front. And it's every single week. This is not just this specific week where I still cannot believe that they put Sam Mustipher at right guard ahead of the 3 players on the active roster who they have spent all offseason with playing guard. It still blows my mind that happened. But there was a screenplay where Jamari got called for a hold, which was a bullshit hold. It was not a hold at all. And on that play, Bradley Bozeman and Sam Mustipher have George Karlaftis right in between them. He's an A-gap player, which like the Chiefs do some really fun shit with their defensive line. It's kind of crazy. So there's an A-gap player. There's a B-gaps linebacker. I think it was Leo Chenal, and then a safety on the outside. And then on the left side, they also had 3 rushers, and the Chargers had a tight end on that side. And you see Bradley Bozeman point at George Karlaftis, and then nobody blocked him. He was an instant free rusher on a screenplay, and he hit Justin Herbert immediately, which is never supposed to happen. Bless you, Tyler. So if you, I tweeted this clip afterwards. So if anybody wants to go watch what I'm talking about, it's there. Mustipher and Pipkins fan right, and then Zion, Jamari, and Bozeman all go left. And then at the very last minute, it's like Zion and Bozeman realize that there's a tight end on the left side. And so then they try to come back to the right. And it's too late. George Karlaftis is already hitting Justin Herbert, free rusher, right in his face instantly. According to Next Gen Stats, it was the fastest quarterback hit of the weekend because he was in the A gap and because George Karlaftis is not a slow defensive tackle. So that was an instant thing. That's happening every single week, regardless of who is playing. That's happening. I don't think it happened at all against the Carolina Panthers, but there were multiple times against the Raiders where they put a tight end against Max Crosby, or they slid protection away from Max Crosby, and he's a free rusher. It happened against the Pittsburgh Steelers where Cam Hayward had a free rush on Taylor Heineke. That one, again, that's Cam Hayward and Max Crosby and George Karlaftis. Very, very good players that this team somehow is just letting run free on their quarterback. So I don't know what's being coached. I'm not in that specific room. Every team has different kind of protection rules, but that is a much bigger problem than Zion one-on-one or Bozeman one-on-one or Trey Pipkins one-on-one or even Sam Mustipher one-on-one. Like I thought Sam Mustipher, outside of when he wasn't going up against Chris Jones, I thought he was like fine against, the other Chiefs players one-on-one. So the protection plans have been a disaster for 3 of the 4 games. And you're talking about games with Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Keanu Benton, Alex Highsmith, and then Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, all these guys, Steve Spagnuolo calling everything. So this is a Bradley Bozeman issue, but it's also a coaching issue, which that to me is the biggest disappointment of this group, because I thought this offensive line regime would be able to elevate and solve these issues. And instead, it's happening 2, 3, 4 times a game. And like, I don't think people understand the effect that has on your quarterback, where he has to diagnose all of the coverage stuff. And then also, oh, by the way, here's one of the best players in the NFL, free rusher right in your grill. So yeah, like there are some things about the offensive line that we can talk about like individually. And I know people are always make fun of me because I'm the Zion Johnson guy, and we can have that conversation.
Sure.
But the coaching protection plans to me is the biggest problem happening right now. And I don't know how it gets solved outside of just like continually, like you just keep letting this happen. And then Jim Harbaugh just says, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, stop letting Justin Herbert get a free rusher right in his face. Excuse my language. But it's really frustrating. That to me is a bigger problem than like Zion is ass and he's a bust or all that stuff that people want to talk about online.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned, watching the game, watching Sam Mustipher, watching Zion, Bradley Bozeman, several times, right? Genuinely feel like there's good football out there, but it's just the moments where it's bad. I don't know if this is when we want to start to pivot towards Justin Herbert, but a lot of the discussion after this loss, I think more so than I've ever seen it in our live chat, in the comments of the tweets during the game and stuff like that, everyone started to say, Herbert problem. It's on him. And we're looking at something that's been a consistent issue for him. You're shaking your head no. So you don't subscribe to the belief that it's a Justin Herbert can't identify pressures or protections or whatever issue.
Yeah, he does not call protections. So if you want to criticize him for that, we don't know enough information of what the Chargers process is. My understanding of being there at training camp and in person and talking to people is that the center sets the protection. And then if Justin wants to make a correction, he can make the correction after that. And he does that from time to time. But for the most part, the Charger center comes up and then Justin is identifying coverages. He's identifying motions. He's looking everywhere else. He's trusting the offensive lineman, the center in particular, to set the protection based off of what has been coached in the past. And then he is able to come up and say, no, I want this instead. And some of these issues that I'm talking about are definitely related to the lack of experience of playing together. I mean, Justin and Corey Linsley at the start of last season were so in sync with everything. And we saw that against the Vikings, where Justin is the only quarterback in the league who has played well against the Brian Flores scheme. And part of that is because him and Corey Linsley were just completely on the same page up front. So some of this can be related just to like the inexperience of Bozeman in a new place. They have not played together. They have not communicated. They don't know each other that well. Bozeman missed a lot of training camp, and the new scheme is coming into play. So blaming Justin Herbert for this, I think, is ridiculous. Justin Herbert on a bad ankle against the Pittsburgh Steelers took 1 sack against the Pittsburgh Steelers, like who have just been destroying everybody else. Mm-hmm. It was a lot worse on Sunday, but again, it was a lot of free rushers. It was a lot of Chris Jones. I don't blame Justin Herbert for that. Even after Sunday, he still has one of the lowest pressure to sack ratings in the league. He is consistently one of the best quarterbacks in the league at mitigating pressure. Mm-hmm. And blaming him for this is wild to me.
Yeah, no, I was definitely surprised. It just seemed like one of those tide turning moments in the fan base where I'm going, oh, that's new. I've seen,
Yeah.
bits and pieces here and there, but that was a lot on Sunday. Yeah, watching that game, and even on the McConkey touchdown, he gets hit by Dobbins guy doesn't, I forget what the word is. I can't think of what the word is right now. But the way he plays the block, he beats the block, hits Herbert. Herbert makes it work. The throw to Dobbins, of course, we've seen a million times now. Like
Yeah.
Herbert is whatever the number of sacks he has per game, it should be 4 or 5 more times. It should be like just those level sack numbers sometimes out there. And yet you don't hear that criticism because he avoids so well.
Yeah, I think even the play. So I thought Trey Pipkins was actually outstanding on Sunday. His one bad rep, he did have a very bad rep against George Karlaftis, and where Karlaftis kind of put him in Justin Herbert's lap. And Justin literally just stood there and checked it down to J.K. Dobbins as George Karlaftis and Trey Pipkins are just kind of like dwarfing him. And it was a check down for 4 or 5 yards that led to a very positive play. So, again, we can talk about his individual play in a second, but sack mitigation is such an important attribute. And outside of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, I don't think there's anybody better in the league at sack mitigation than Justin Herbert. And I think you can make a very real argument that he's better than at least one of those quarterbacks, depending how you feel about him. So
yeah,
he is so good under pressure, and that's always one of his strengths. The last thing I'll say about the offensive line is that if you zoom out and you look at the 2 games where the Chargers had Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt healthy together, they were allowing pressure on 27.5% of Justin Herbert's dropbacks. That number would be the second lowest number in the league last season. Only Tua's percentage was lower, and that's because he gets the ball out so friggin' fast that there's just no chance for pressure. So I understand it looked really bad on Sunday. The Chargers did not have their 2 best players, and they were playing a practice squad center at right guard. So I get it. I understand it was not pretty, and I understand it was not great against the Steelers either. But if you put the numbers out there when Rashawn and Joe are out there and healthy, it's 27.5%, which is a really, really freaking good number. So all of the issues that everybody is talking about, when the Chargers are healthy, the pressure numbers are significantly better. The last 2 games, the number has been 45.9%. It's not great. It's very, very high. But again, like you're going from 2, I think, top tier tackles to Trey's a fine tackle. He gets a lot of hate for reasons that I don't understand. And Jamari, who's, a little bit below that level. But again, we just talked about the interior being the problem here. So I'm just going to encourage people to take a breath. Joe Alt is going to be back after the bye week. Rashawn Slater is potentially back after the bye week. We'll see what happens there. But when those 2 are healthy, I expect it to be a lot better because then the Chargers can dedicate more resources to the interior. And those 2 guys are just so good when they're out there. And as we see Joe Alt continue to get more and more reps, they won't have to chip as much because, they're doing that at a decently high rate right now, and they can dedicate those resources towards the interior. So I understand it's been bad the last 2 weeks. The Chargers lost the last 2 weeks, but help is coming, and the help is elite tackle play.
Yeah, which I'm excited for. Edison, big fan of your analysis so far. Best analyst of the Chargers. He gets it. Thank you, Steven. Thank you for your $9 super chat. I don't know if that's related to anything in particular, but yeah, $9. Appreciate it. Edison, thank you.
We appreciate that. All right. Let's talk about the wide receiver part of this conversation.
Okay.
We've been very happy about the way that Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey have played. When it comes to Justin's trust in those 2 and everybody else around him that he's throwing the football, what have you seen on tape? Where would you like to see this go? Do you think it's enough right now that they have these players, or what's your opinion of this, supporting cast as pass catchers?
Yeah, so Quentin Johnston obviously started the year well, and against Pittsburgh, he had 2 catches, I think, but 1 notable touchdown catch that was more almost Herbert created. You can call it
I would
scheme.
say 100% Herbert created.
Yeah. Freed up Quentin Johnston. It wasn't exactly a slant for a touchdown or something. So I was kind of curious about the sustainability of it and how he'd look against the Chiefs. And he got bullied. Like, he got flat out bullied by the Chiefs defenders. The defensive backs beat him up that entire game. And, uncovered some of the issues that he'd been dealing with as an X receiver, as the boundary guy. It just wasn't working. So Quentin Johnston, we'll see. As far as Ladd McConkey goes, he's wide receiver 1, and I don't want to really see, like, yes, he's the slot receiver. He's wide receiver 1. Like, the dude is magic. What he does out there, and the numbers back it up. I think in terms of yards per route run, I think right now he's between, oh gosh, I think I wrote it down somewhere. He's tied with Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp.
That's pretty good company.
Not bad company to be in, which it's funny because it's like 22nd right now, but I think things will average out when, one big play really inflates it early on in the season. So regardless, being tied with those two guys is pretty good. It's about what you can ask for. So McConkey, I think, is awesome. He gets football in a way that I haven't seen the Chargers really have since, earlier best stages of Keenan Allen. He's currently ahead of Keenan Allen's yards per route run as a rookie. So Keenan's yards per route run versus McConkey's. McConkey is ahead. So it's a very impressive start. I think he, as a focal point, is fantastic. And that catch he had in the end zone against the Chiefs really speaks to just one more thing where you can trust McConkey. Really one more thing that you build a connection. With that said, even with as much as I like McConkey and what he does in the slot and how he wins against the slot DB, the safety, whoever it is, it really feels like if it's not the first thing that Herbert has to do in this passing attack, or maybe the second thing, and if they're not open, this passing game is toast. There's nothing really after that first, maybe second, but really that first read. Yeah. So if it's not Quentin Johnston deep down the sideline, or if it's not McConkey supposed to win in the slot or whatever, it's kind of just, okay, we got to get it out. We got to throw it we got to check it down. It's not working anywhere else. I don't really see this. Again, it is early. Everything we're talking about today, we understand the caveats. We understand the nuances of the injuries, the offensive line, the new scheme, and all that.
Right.
But I don't see a Herbert that's working through several progressions, and I don't see him really trusting anybody else to get it done. And in particular, I think Hayden Hurst has been missed in several opportunities because I flat out think Herbert isn't really gelling with Hayden Hurst right now. A couple times against the Chiefs, I've seen it previous games as well. Just doesn't really want to go that route. And I think Hayden Hurst right now isn't quite what Chargers fans maybe hoped he would be. Even us is maybe not as super optimistic. Hasn't really been that guy. And then frankly, like when you drop and fumble things in games, it doesn't really help you.
Yeah.
So overall, I think McConkey's been great. I think his role should expand. Johnston is better, but still not great. But the weapons around Herbert are not getting open. The separation is not great. And I don't know if the offense is then also helping these guys get open either.
Yeah, the latter part, we're going to have that conversation about Greg Roman's scheme and stuff like that. But, the Chiefs run press man coverage at the highest clip in the league. And it's like the gap between them and number 2 is higher than the gap between like number 2 and number 15. Like they love their physical corners, and they have replaced L'Jarius Sneed seamlessly. Like you cannot tell the difference. And so, I've been very happy with Quentin Johnston, but the way that they are using him is kind of like the main thing. And it's just like a way that makes sense. The Chiefs treated him like a number 1, and they said, you're not touching the ball today. And that basically happened until the very end of the game when he had a very crucial third down conversion on a slant. It was a great route, great catch. Very pleased with that specific rep. But outside of that, they just lined up and said, we're going to play bully ball with your wide receivers, and they're not going to be able to get free. And Quentin and Josh Palmer, they were essentially non-factors until like the very end of the game. So I feel like watching that game live and watching the tape that Justin had eyes for Ladd, and otherwise he was going straight to the checkdowns. And, it felt very 2022 rib injury Justin Herbert-esque, where I'm going to trust my number one read because that's Keenan Allen or Josh Palmer in some games. And then he would skip 2, 3, and 4 and go to Austin Eckler. And Austin Eckler had 103 catches or whatever for basically that reason. Except this time with this offense, the check down is Will Dissly or J.K. Dobbins. Like, no shade. They're not pass catchers like Austin Eckler. And I know people don't like Austin Eckler anymore, but like as a pass catcher, we can agree that he's one of the best in the league as a running back. So it was a big issue. It was basically like, Lad, okay, I'm going back to Will Dissly or J.K. Dobbins. And it was an issue. Like, people were not getting open. So when I watched the tape, I felt like the Chiefs just essentially locked shit down. Like, they were playing lights out football, and the Chargers did not have an answer. I don't think DJ Chark coming back is going to change that, but I think it will help based off of what we saw in training camp. It will at least kind of like open up some verticality to the offense right now. Because at this point in time, it's a lot of horizontal stuff. And if your route timing is off, then you're not really able to kind of function. And so the very last 4th and 1 that the Chargers had in the red zone, during that moment, I couldn't really like see what was happening. And I didn't love like the way that the play call was executed. I especially didn't love that Sam Mustipher was 1-on-1 against Chris Jones. But the route concept that the Chargers ran in that moment, I thought actually made a lot of sense. So they put Ladd McConkey in the backfield in almost kind of like a Tyreek Hill Dolphins-esque formation. And then they tried to get him on an angle route against the safety. And if Justin Herbert had the time, he would have come open and it would have been probably a touchdown, but he didn't have the time. The other part of that is Quentin Johnston's running a drag route, and Nick Bolton lit him up. And so Quentin Johnston was essentially erased from that route concept. So when Herbert rolls to the left, he has nobody to throw to. So all of this kind of ties together. But I do think the Chiefs were just on it as a secondary, and they made it very clear that this Chargers receiving core has one player who can consistently win against man coverage, and that's Ladd McConkey, who's a rookie, which is kind of an issue. But I think against other teams who will play zone, who don't have the kind of scheme and corners that the Chiefs do, there will be better days ahead for the passing offense, specifically this young receiver group.
Yeah, I agree. This was like the worst matchup they could have had in the worst possible moment with the injury, with the offensive line. So I do feel better about their prospects moving forward. Even if DJ Chark can't separate as much as the other guys, we at least have an element of contested catch that really hasn't been there. I actually don't know what the contested catch rate is for the Chargers right now. Can I think of one? I guess it depends on the version of a contested catch, but I can rattle off the Mike Williams ones, right, from previous years. Have they had one?
So Quentin has 2 contested catches. I think the touchdown against JC Horn was 1.
Okay.
That counts. And then I can't remember the other one.
Was the slant contested?
I don't know if they count slants as contested or not. Okay, so it was. They did count the slant as a contested catch.
Okay.
So one kind of goal line fade thing and then one slant. So that is a good point. I think DJ Chark has a very specific role in this offense that has not been available to them right now.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that'll improve. The running backs as pass catchers. I mean, Edwards and Dobbins had, I think, 16 yards in 3 games coming into this game as a receiving group. And of course, then Dobbins had a couple of better moments. He had a screen that went for 10 or 12 or whatever it was in this game. So he was more involved this game, and that was good to see. But yeah, this pass catching group, look, would I trade Joel for Malik Neighbors? I don't know. I would have taken Malik Neighbors, but Joel's been freaking awesome. So I'm not going to have this conversation, but we wanted a pass catcher for a reason. And it's kind of a bummer that they also then drafted 2 wide receivers and then didn't get anything from them so far. I honestly left this game thinking not about the receiving core, but about the tight ends. I'm just like, where's the tight end one for Justin Herbert? Where's that outlet? Where's the big body guy in the middle? Where's the actual legit tight end one for Justin Herbert? I think it's got to be addressed. I think people will talk about running backs, offensive line, receivers, and I totally get it. They all have to be addressed. Give Give him that tight end. People are mentioning, Phillip Rivers could diagnose and he could diagnose. And I don't expect Antonio Gates to walk, 2.0 to walk through that door. But it really helps when you have Antonio Gates out there, and that connection was golden. You could do it in their eyes closed.
Yeah.
And with Keenan gone, where's that next guy? Maybe that ends up being McConkey, but a tight end I'm ready for.
Yeah, we went from a tight end room of all pass catchers and no blockers to a tight end room of no pass catchers and all blockers. We're designing targets for Scott Matlock and screen passes to Will Dissly, which was cool. It was a great design, but it's a little different going from Gerald Everett screens to Will Dissly screens. So
yeah,
that's a point that I think is 100% needs to be addressed, because this offense, I don't believe, can function at its peak without a tight end controlling things over the middle. And you look at wherever these two coaches have been, whether that's with Mark Andrews, whether that's with Vernon Davis, whether that's with Colston Loveland or Jake Butt or whoever, the Stanford days, did they have Zach Ertz? Was Jim Harbaugh there for Zach Ertz? I can't remember. Anyways, this offense needs a functional, legitimate tight end one. If you look at yards per route run among tight ends, Hayden Hurst is very low in that metric. He's averaging less than 1 yard per route run right now. Some of that is just like you mentioned earlier, there's a lack of trust between the two. But what we know of Justin Herbert is, if I go out of my way to throw you the football and you drop it, that's a big deal to Justin Herbert. And it's taken a lot of work with him and Quentin to get on the same page. We've had, no full training camp for Justin Herbert. He's been injured now. Maybe that gets better with Hayden Hurst, but they have a quarter of a pass catching tight end. So it's an issue. I know everybody's kind of clamoring for our Mark Andrews trade or whatever. The Ravens are trying to win a Super Bowl, and Mark Andrews is still very much important to that goal of theirs. So that's not happening. I would love if Joe Ortiz could call up Tom Telesco and say, hey, that tight end from the second round last year that you don't play anymore because you have Brock Bowers, let me get in on some Michael Mayer action. But again, that's an interdivision trade. Probably not happening. So I do everybody's clamoring for a wide receiver, and I get it. I think this team is going to look at DJ Chark as their trade acquisition. I would love to see a more relevant pass catching tight end. If you're not going to throw the football to Hayden Hurst, give me some Stone Smart. Justin Herbert trusts him.
Yep.
He's more athletic. He provides some vertical stretch that Hayden Hurst can't. Something has to change, or this tight end room is just going to continue to be a non-factor in that regard.
Yeah. I mentioned before the season, they don't have who's the third down guy. I think that was my first X factor of the year. It's who's the third down guy? Who's the check down guy? I still don't know.
We still don't know.
Yeah. We still don't know, and it's week 4. So to have that have been a question before the season, it's still not answered is tough, and that's not on Greg Roman. That's not up to him. That's just the guys that he was given. But yeah, right now they don't have a guy.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue, because to me, you look at on the website for EPA per play and success rate, you can isolate offense, defense from a down-to-down basis.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at third down specifically, the Chargers are, let me make sure I get this right. They are, I just had it. Oh my goodness. Okay. What I will say about the Chargers offense, they are second worst in the league at converting a series into a second down. So they are having 3 and outs at the second highest rate in the league. The only team worse than them is the Denver Broncos. So they have Bo Nix and the Chargers have Justin Herbert. So it's an issue. Specifically on third downs, they are 25th in the league in success rate on third downs when passing, and they are 12th in the league when they can run the football. So if the Chargers can stay on schedule, they can convert these third down situations at a pretty high rate. The percentage, 62% on rushing success rate on third downs last year would have been 8th or 7th in the league. The passing offense, it would have been much worse. So that kind of speaks to your point about third downs are a major issue right now, because if teams can kind of take away Lad, there's no real other option here going on. So the passing offense on third down, they're getting in way too far distances, which is
Yeah.
not setting up the offensive line for success. And then the pass catchers just are not at that point where they have a consistent third down winner. Like Lad can do it, but Justin and us, we are so used to third and Keenan, right? Like third down is the
Yeah.
Keenan down. Even like the Mike Williams stuff. It was like third downs. I never sweated third downs. Honestly, it was just like Keenan's going to get open or Mike will make a contested catch and the Chargers will go. Now it's like shit. If Lad isn't open, like where do they go with the football? And
Yeah.
so that's a major issue from a overall offense standpoint. That's not isolated for the last 2 games. That's the entire season where they just are not a functional passing attack on third downs.
Yeah. I think it was maybe Lombardi's first year where we were all criticizing first and second, this unreal thing on third and fourth down where they just were unstoppable. Keenan, Mike Williams, whatever it was, they always came up with it. This one, it just feels like, especially with the pre-snap penalties and the early, lack of run success rate or the penalties, it's like, oh, here's 3rd and 9, here's 3rd and 11, and the line can't hold up and this and that. So it's been a struggle, but it is year 1 of the regime. We're hoping for better in the future. I'm close to a Rachaad White trade request.
The Chargers need more pass catchers. I think for the receivers are kind of wait and see once DJ Chark comes back. I'm happy with what Ladd has put out. Quentin Johnson improvement has been nice, but they need more pass catchers. The good news is that the Chargers are successful on first down with a passing offense at the 8th highest rate in the league. So they do execute well on first downs. And I think that right now, from a passing standpoint, is what Greg Roman has done best. And the way that the Chargers are using these RPO concepts to free up the pass catchers, I think has been really solid. I think that's what's led to some of the better plays for Quentin Johnson, what's led to some of the better plays for Joshua Palmer, for Ladd as well. So I think the Chargers have this approach of like, we're going to run to set up the pass. I think that needs to be flipped a little bit here as they continue to try and like build out this offense. Let's pass on first down. Let's get to 3rd and manageable. And then we can run the football, because they've been able to do that really well. On third down specifically, they're actually 5th in EPA per rush. So those 3rd and short situations have actually led to some J.K. Dobbins explosive runs. Even Gus Edwards has had a couple explosive runs on third down. And so that to me is one change that I definitely want to see them make after the bye, is let's kind of start with the pass and then let's work in the run after that. I know I'm probably speaking to a wall at this point because Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman want to establish the run. But to me, that's an encouraging sign that the bones of the passing offense can function. You just have to avoid 3rd and long. Like that's the thing for this Chargers passing offense. For me, is that I think they can be a functional average to potentially above average passing offense if they can stay out of those 3rd and long situations. But right now, they are consistently living in those 3rd and long areas. I mean, you talked about the penalties and everything like that. Like, you don't have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt and Sam Mustipher starting, and you're going to be in a 3rd and 15 against Chris Jones and George Karlaftis and Steve Spagnuolo. You're not going to move the football, and that's ultimately what happened on Sunday, and that's what happened against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well.
Yeah, I agree. Although I don't recall their run pass rate or early down run pass rate, but it felt like against the Steelers to pass earlier on in that game. And I think I liked at least the first quarter of that game, first half of that game, what they were trying to do. Would we like to have the Greg Roman discussion?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so going into this year, we were hoping for kind of not Greg Roman. We were all in for Jim Harbaugh, and if not him, then like a Ben Johnson, but we got Jim Harbaugh. Great. So we were hoping for Tanner Engstrand or another coaching connection, a bit more of a modern offense, passing attack. They went with Greg Roman, and we thought, okay, the passing game might not be there as much as we'd like it to be, but we think early on, we believe that the run game will be great and the trenches will play well and the floor of the offense will be higher. And then Herbert's playing free and happy and supported in this offensive scheme. And he will then take the passing game, and he will kind of be the reason that Greg Roman has the best offense maybe he's ever had. So far, and for many reasons, again, we recall what these reasons are, this offense has not been great. It's their worst start in terms of EPA per play through 4 games since Shane Steichen in 2020. And even that's kind of unfair to compare to Steichen because didn't even think it was going to be Justin Herbert as his quarterback.
COVID
Herbert's rookie,
offseason.
no offseason, Herbert's rookie season. So it's a little unfair, although it technically was Steichen's second year as a coordinator. So whatever. Point is, Lombardi starts his first year 7th, and then his second year 11th through 4 games. Kellen Moore through 4 games, they were 4th. Now the wheels fell off. That Vikings game really helps this number. It fell off later on. Greg Roman, this offense right now is 23rd in overall EPA per play. It's not been where I wanted it to be, but I will say I'm encouraged by what has been there. And I honestly am encouraged. I thought watching the game initially against the Chiefs, and maybe it's more so how the game ended, but I thought, okay, this is a vanilla, crappy offense. I hate this. What is going on? I despise it. Then you watch that opening drive against the Chiefs, and I go, there's a lot of creativity here. Yeah. I mean, they came out with a purpose and an intention to move the pocket, move the players. They had a fake pitch to McConkey that was handed off to Dobbins and almost like a pseudo counter kind of play. There was a lot. I mean, the screen to Will Dissly, that worked. It was all clicking. The bones of what they were trying to do and what Greg Roman could scheme up early on, they were all there. It's just, for me, it's not really the play calling anymore as much. It's the execution. I think Greg Roman maybe wants to do these certain things that are actually interesting and intriguing. But right now, they're executed every time. So I'm struggling with Greg Roman as a coordinator right now. I acknowledge all the other issues that are out of his control. We just talked about the lack of weapons that maybe set up his offense for more success. But right now, I'm not loving this offense, especially when I feel like the overall offensive ecosystem isn't getting it done up front on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think the script of this Chargers offense is fun to watch. I think Greg Roman can do some creative things from a passing game standpoint, from a run game standpoint. To me, this offense just does not have the players to execute like a traditional drop back offense. And then that's Greg Roman's biggest weakness, right? Like Greg Roman, his strength is, okay, we're going to run this concept, and we're going to build this concept off of it, and this concept off of that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you watch like one specific run that they like a run play they do, and then they have an RPO concept off of it. They have a jet sweep off of it. They have a downfield vertical play action concept off of it. That's all really, really good bones of the offense. But when they get into 3rd and long situations, there's no like juice to the offense like we've seen in the past. Like even Joe Lombardi on 3rd and long situations, he would have an answer for it. Now, some of that is just like Joe Lombardi has learned passing offense from Sean Payton, and like that, the bones of that passing offense are at a much higher level than the bones of the passing offense of Greg Roman and where he has come from. So I think it's too early to say. Like I saw an article today from a fan that was like, Chargers fans owe Joe Lombardi an apology. And I was like, well, that's a really layered conversation. And we had 3 years of data or 2 years of data for Joe Lombardi, and we only have 4 games of Greg Roman. So it's the passing game. To me, I would describe it as a work in progress that needs things to go well from a game script perspective to function. So the Greg Roman experience to me, I would say, is like the bones of the offense, run game, pass game are solid and sound, but there's no problem solving going on. Like that's the issue. There's no answers for 3rd and long. There's no answers for Sam Mustipher playing. There's no answers for not having 2 great tackles. We don't have great receivers. Okay, I don't know how to scheme them up. It's just like the problem solving is not there. And that was supposed to be one of the main things of bringing in, like Marcus Brady and, Andy Bischoff, who have been like in these other places, and Shane Day, who can kind of draw from various Chargers offense that Justin likes. And so it's just, I think they kind of during this bye week got to go back to the drawing board and figure out some ways for the third and long situations just resulting in positive plays, instead of just like, well, okay, well, we're just going to run a draw play and then we're going to punt because field position and defense. Like, it's tough, man. The problem solving is just not, it's not happening.
Yeah, no, it's not. Did you feel watching the offense that one of the issues we had with Joe Lombardi a few years ago was that if things were working, he, ooh, that's fun, that's creative. Hey, throw a flea flicker in there or whatever. As soon as things didn't work, he regressed into like the 3 plays that he thought were just going to get them through the game.
Stick play.
Do you feel that that's the same case with Greg Roman here, or it's more just an execution thing and they just can't do what they want?
I haven't watched enough of Greg Roman to find like his staple play. Like from the ground game, I know that he loves pin and pull, and he loves counter, which are great concepts when you have the pieces to run them. He loves duo, but from a passing game perspective, I haven't found like his go-to like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 call, because we haven't seen it. And a lot of those situations, they've just kind of punted, and we're going to run a draw play or we're going to throw a screen, and if we can convert, great. So part of the issue with the passing offense is the personnel, that you don't have those other guys that can step up in those situations. But part of it is just kind of like the general approach that they are not pushing the boundary to try and get first downs in those situations. It's just kind of like, well, we have a good defense and we have a good punter, so we're just going to be conservative here.
Yeah. And the punter's 50-50. But then even whatever they're trying on third down,
they think J.K. Scott is great. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it's just the problem solving is like non-existent. So that to me is the frustrating part. We talked about like the offensive line stuff. I just would have hoped that this kind of offensive staff that they put together with Jim Harbaugh would have been, fixing these kind of things, and maybe they will after the bye week.
Totally good.
But it's just the combination of the lack of receiving threats and Greg Roman's weaknesses that are really, capping the ceiling and the floor of this offense right now.
I agree. I know we're a little running out of time here, but I know you want to talk about the defense. Do we want to do any final thoughts on the offense? Do we want to get to the defense?
Wrapping this up about Justin Herbert, because we didn't talk a ton about like his play individually. That elite player is still in there, and I think we have seen glimpses of it. The volume of this offense is not at the level where we are able to see Justin Herbert function at the same level, right? Like they're at a 50-50 split right now, so the volume is not going to be there. Plus, they're not converting third downs at a high rate, so there's not a ton of possessions. What Justin Herbert is putting out on tape is still fantastic. Like he is operating this offense as well as it can, and he is playing as well as he can, and he's making some insane throws on a week-to-week basis, as he always has. The touchdown to Ladd McConkey was crazy. The sideline pass that J.K. Dobbins dropped, one of the craziest passes I've seen in my lifetime. He's making high-level quarterback plays. It's just that he's not throwing the football 50 times a game anymore. He's throwing it 30, and then he's getting sacked. And so it's just the volume is not there for him to shine like everybody is accustomed to him shining. And then all of the injuries. And so if you are a person out there that thinks that Justin Herbert has regressed, or he's not playing well, or you're concerned about the lack of yards, I understand. I don't want to make this to be like everybody else except for Justin is wrong here.
Sure.
But he's playing very, very well, especially when you take into consideration that he can barely move right now. And they don't have a really like legitimate receiving wide receiver 2. There's no legitimate tight end 1. Justin is doing as much as he possibly can to execute the offense, and he's playing very well. It's just there's a lot of limitations with this group up, from an offensive line injury standpoint, from a pass catching standpoint, and a Greg Roman standpoint. But Justin is fine, and when he gets healthy from this ankle injury, he will continue to be the player that we are used to. It's just the volume is going to be dialed down.
Yeah, that's the volume is a very important factor to remember here. It's not the same. We're not seeing the 45, 50 passes a game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we're not at least using 30. You know, we're like 25-ish, I think is the max right now for him. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we're not seeing that same volume. I do see a quarterback who is still able to elevate. We talked about the sack avoidance. I think him doing that alone is an elite quality that people need to really respect more and take into consideration. I think some of the difficult throws that he can make, they're still there. It's just not as frequent. And, you know, the offense, the separation, all that just doesn't really help him. I mean, there are great plays. Was it Tomlinson or it was Hurst and against the Panthers? There's that great play where he's falling down. Tomlinson. Elite, awesome play. Throws it. Guy, I thought fumbled it, ends up dropping it. And it's like, great. You know, get Dobbins again down the sideline. What a throw. I'm still watching that, trying to figure out like how physics of that specific throw. Like, how do you process that throw? How do you process that throw to McConkey? Stuff is in his brain, and he's doing that hurts. I mean, he's trying to make some of these throws. He's like, my leg's going to hurt, and this is going to hurt. Here we go. And just arm talent alone is kind of able to make it work. I think the great quarterback is still there. We just won't see great statistics from him. And that's led to a weird narrative of like, well, we should just get a game manager then. Like, what's the point of paying Justin Herbert? Like, if you paid a game manager right now, that is 10 sacks a game. So you could pay a game manager, I guess. But Herbert's been fine. He's not playing great football. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Herbert's playing great elite football right now.
That's fair.
But I think he is surviving in an unfortunate situation right now that involves his line and his injury, the sort of overall lack of weapons, and then his coordinator trying to figure things out too. It's his umpteenth coordinator in his career. They're all trying to figure it out. Hopefully after the bye, a little bit of health, a little bit of luck, a little bit of, you know, gelling. I think things will work out.
Yeah. I think things will improve. I think Justin Herbert is too good. And when he is not on a bum ankle, like people need to realize like what his ankle injury is doing. Also, we didn't talk a ton about this, but the boot game and the RPO game is like 35%, 40% of what the Chargers playbook is right now. And Justin Herbert cannot move. Like everybody, there was that bootleg where he ended up throwing to Will Dissly. I was faster than that guy on that specific play, and I am out of shape, and I'm 30, and I played offensive line. He cannot move. And so when you take all of that out of the playbook, it really, really limits what you can do from a verticality standpoint, from an intermediate standpoint. Everything is limited from that ankle injury. So that is also part of it. So Justin Herbert, I think, is going to be more than okay. I think the offense is going to improve as they get healthier. But right now, it's just the ceiling is capped. And I think like in the offseason, there was a lot of, well, Justin's an elite quarterback. Like he's going to elevate these guys. And Patrick Mahomes does it. And Josh Allen does it. Very, very different circumstances. Patrick Mahomes has Travis Kelce to always rely on. And we've seen what that looks like. And he has Andy Reid. And Josh Allen has Joe Brady, who I would consider a much better play caller than Greg Roman at this point in time. So it's extremely different. Not every quarterback situation is the same. I think he is elevating the players around him. It's just not coming to fruition a ton right now. So patience with Justin Herbert. I think he will be fine. I think the passing offense will improve. It's just the ceiling is so much lower than what we are used to as fans. So it's just going to look a little bit different until they can get some better pieces in it. Like the past 2 years, the ceiling of the passing offense has been a top 5 offense. The ceiling of this specific passing offense is probably 14th. So it's just different based off of who he's throwing the ball to and who is calling the plays. So it's going to take some time to coalesce, I think.
Yeah. And the schedule is a bit more favorable. I mean, at Denver isn't super fun. But I think Arizona, New Orleans, Cleveland, who knows what's happening there, Tennessee, Cincinnati, even Baltimore post McDonald, Atlanta. You know, you're not seeing the Chiefs again until December. I think there's a lot of time there for the Chargers to find their footing.
Yeah. And I think they'll get there. It's funny. Like a lot of people are turning on the coaching staff after like being Jim Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh we trust or bust basically. And we're 4 weeks in and everybody's injured and everybody wants to bail. Just be a little bit patient right now is what I would suggest.
Yeah.
On the opposite side, very, very quickly, Jesse Minter rocks, man. I love watching this Chargers defense on tape. The things that they are doing from a simulated pressure standpoint are fantastic. We've watched a lot of Chargers Patrick Mahomes matchups. I have never, ever seen any Chargers defense frustrate Patrick Mahomes at the rate that that was happening on Sunday. And it's just consistently every single week. They are second in EPA per play through 4 weeks. They're second in success rate through 4 weeks. The Chargers have never been that high since this website existed back in 2018. So Jesse Minter is pushing all the right buttons. He is maximizing players. Puna Ford, Otito Ogbonia look like legitimate difference makers. Deion Henley looks fantastic. Christian Fulton looks fantastic. Elijah Molden has come in on the fly and playing great football. I'm excited to see what Derwin James can do the rest of the season. Jesse Minter is the truth, man. Like he is pushing all the right buttons at the right time. And I don't think he has the pieces that he wants to have to run his defense properly. Like I mentioned, press coverage rate. The Seahawks and the Ravens right now are both in the top 10 in press coverage rate. The Chargers are in the bottom 10 because of who he has at cornerback. Like the potential of getting Jesse Minter the right pieces is so much fun for me to think about. I just don't know if he's going to be around with the Chargers to see that vision come to fruition. But man, he's doing everything right now. And it's just been so much fun to watch this defense come together. You talked about this on Sunday, kind of waiting for a bigger moment to see really where the defense is at. We saw that on Sunday against Patrick Mahomes. I think this defense legitimately has like top 10 ceiling right now because of Jesse Minter.
Yeah. That was the announcement game. And I think that what better play to summarize the fact that this is a different and better defense than coverage and stopping Mahomes on a scramble like a QB spy, like he's a linebacker working downhill. Like,
yeah,
it is just so different. I don't recall what it was last year in Arrowhead where they gave up 3 billion yards to the Chiefs before the catch or after the catch, excuse me. But I remember them talking like, oh, we played too much zone. We played too much this or whatever. And we were this, and we should have done this. And they mentioned in the broadcast, Jesse mentioned they've been playing zone like a ton in this game. Yeah. And even Andy Reid said, hey, that's why Travis Kelce was able to open it up about a lot more. They played 82% of their game in zone or whatever. But like, even if the game plans in terms of zone frequency were similar, the execution is so much freaking better. The simulation pressures are so much better. I can't believe they were able to do what they're able to do against the Chiefs with, and again, I don't mean to keep saying this because it's mean, but like, there's no interior defensive lineman on that team that's like Justin Madubuike. There's Derwin was out. So even if you think Derwin's like Kyle Hamilton, there was no Kyle Hamilton this game. There was no, and I respect these players. There's no Roquan Smith out there. I just can't believe what Minter is doing with this defense and how good they are. They are fantastic. I truly underestimated Jesse Minter, and we were all thrilled with this hire. We knew it was going to eventually be good.
Just not right away.
I didn't think they would instantly be one of the best defenses in the league. And every week, it's been 4 straight weeks of we're just going to play pretty good football and beat you up. And it's impressive. So, they have some tests coming up. Obviously, they got Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr., a lot coming up. But I like Jesse Minter is outstanding. I can't think of another turnaround look, I looked at the last 32 defensive coordinator changes for every NFL team. Not a single first-year coordinator ever brought their team from in the 20s in EPA per play to into the top 10. Minter's there right now. Like, it's only been former head coaches and former Super Bowl playing in head coaches who were veteran guys who went to another team, and then they were able to take their team into the top 10. Minter being the first guy to do that of the last 32 defensive coordinator changes would be insane.
Yeah. The crazy thing about this to me is that when we pictured like success for the defense, it was like, okay, they have this great edge room. Jesse Minter is going to blitz a lot, create a lot of pressure. That's not happening. They're creating pressure at like a league average rate. I think they're like 20th in pressure rate right now. And blitz percentage is around 17th. So they're not doing the Brian Flores thing, which is kind of like what we expected. It was like, okay, Jesse Minter's just going to come in and blitz a lot. They're doing this because of their run defense and because of their coverage. Let me say that again. The Chargers are winning with coverage despite not having like a true CB1. So it's insane to me. You mentioning the coverage rates. They're running cover 0 and cover 1 at a 14% clip. That means they're playing man coverage at 14% and zone coverage at 86% of the time. And again, like you look at the coverage disparities between what like the Ravens tree usually is. Mike McDonald is running in Seattle, who he definitely has the pieces at cornerback to run the offense, their defense that he wants to do. They're playing man coverage at like a 40% coverage, 40% rate. And the actual Ravens are running man coverage at a 30% rate. Like they have the pieces they want. And so it's just the fact that he's doing this with cornerbacks who I don't think he actively trusts to play man coverage is crazy. So it's been a ton of fun to watch. You know, part of this season was about like trying to find some guys who could be around for past their 1-year contracts. Poona Ford is playing lights out football right now for this team. Christian Fulton is playing fantastic. Denzel Perryman playing fantastic. Elijah Molden is playing awesome. So they're finding some guys, and really their only above average pass rusher right now is Khalil Mack, who was absolutely game wrecker on Sunday, in my opinion. And so it's so much fun to watch, man. Jesse Minter there's like one coverage bust a game, maybe like 2 if it's a bad game so far. Which is crazy, man. Like the Chargers under Brandon Staley would have a coverage bust like every 5 plays. It was awful to watch on tape. And now it's never happening. So Jesse Minter, embrace him while you have him, Chargers fans. I don't know how long this is going to last. I hope that Jim Harbaugh can convince him to stick around for the next couple of years, but this guy knows how to coach, man. And he's completely changed his scheme from Michigan to the Chargers, and they're a top 5 defense right now. So he deserves a ton of credit for how the Chargers defense has played so far.
Yeah, outstanding. Got to be one of the best coaching hires in the entire NFL this season.
Yeah. Daniel Popper pointed this out. Patrick Mahomes has started 99 football games in his career. He has been held to 17 or less now 11 times after Sunday. So Jesse Minter did something that only 10 other times has happened against Patrick Mahomes. So that's pretty good.
Very, very impressive.
All right. See, we ended on a positive note.
Yay.
Who would have thought that, 2 months ago, if we were talking about a potential top 5 unit, it would be the Chargers defense and not the offense.
Not even the special teams. It's weird. Every time we say, look, we just want to be like 20, side of the football. We talked about the special teams group, and they ended up being top 5. This offseason, it was about the defense, and now they're top 5. So we just, moving forward, I just need this offense to be like 18 to 20 range.
Yes.
And that's all I need.
Yeah, that's all we need is just average offense. So, which is crazy.
It'll happen.
Yeah. All right, hour 10 today, passing offense, defense. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I do think better days are ahead for the offense. They'll be healthier, and I think it'll be improved. I just don't think we are accustomed to seeing this kind of lack of ceiling for the Chargers offense, but it'll be better than it has been the last 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Better days ahead. That's the life of a Chargers fan.
Yes, always. All right, guys. Appreciate you so much for tuning in live. The chat has been pretty fun tonight. It's been lively despite the bye week. So hopefully you can go tell a friend, check out the episode, check out the show. Make sure like, subscribe, all that good stuff does continue to help to grow the podcast. So we are on a very different schedule this week. Tyler had a school event last night. I have a school event tomorrow night. And then Brooke and I are celebrating our anniversary on Saturday. So we will be going live on Sunday this week for our usual Saturday Q&A. We'll keep you guys posted when that is. But just Wednesday and Saturday this week. And then we'll get back to a normal schedule next week. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
I'm exhausted, dude. I ran an assembly today. My Fitbit says 22,622 steps today. I am going to go to sleep right after this.
Yeah, you deserve that. That's
and happy anniversary. Good God. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. 7 years for me and Brooke, which is crazy.
That's awesome, man.
But man, 22,000 steps is crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks so much to Tyler for the well wishes and everybody in the chat. It's going to be a fun weekend celebrating here in Fresno. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your week. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.